We're building all these AI agents into our software these days, but how do we know they are working correctly?
And let me show you how.
Welcome to the show, Annie. What do you do here at Google?
Hi, Martin. So I spent the last 6 years as a software engineer and most recently 3 years at Google. And I realized that I love AI education and community building. So I switched to the developer relations team.
And that's how we became teammates, as I'm also in the developer relations team.
Yeah.
Now, what's your focus area, Annie?
Oh, so I focus on building with AI and agents on Google Cloud.
And that makes you the perfect person for my question. So in previous videos, I have shown how to build AI apps that use agents. But viewers kept asking me, how do I test these agents?
Yeah, so agents are software and all software should be tested.
Right? For example, earlier you showed me this neat customer service app for retailers that you had built. It lets the user ask about and find products. It also knows about customers and orders, and we can even refund orders if the customer asks for it. So I really like this agentic app, but how can we evaluate this agent so we know it's safe to deploy to real users?
Yeah, so you want different kinds of testing for different stages of software lifecycle. And here is how I think about it. During development, you can run interactive tests in a nice user interface. And during testing, a good way to run tests is to run it from the command line. And during deployment, you want to automate tests in a CI/CD pipeline.
Okay, I come from traditional software background, and I know how to do those things for regular software. And how do I do that for agents?
Sure, so let's start with development. I have built my agent with Google Agent Development Kit or ADK. And during development, I can start the ADK web UI like this. And then I can talk with my agent.
All right, so far so good.
And here is how to test it. If I'm happy with that interaction I just had, I can save it in a new evaluation dataset like this. And then I can give the evaluation dataset a name.
Okay, the interaction was saved, and that's your golden dataset. When we run tests, we'll compare against that?
That's right. So now I can run the evaluation. And when I do that, I can set 2 evaluation metrics. They determine how strict the test should be. And this 2 trajectory score determines how closely the test must match the tool code in the golden dataset.
So if you set that slider all the way to the right at 1.0, the test will only succeed if the tools are called in exactly the same order as in the golden dataset?
Correct. And the response score determines how closely the new response must be to the golden dataset to pass. And now let's replay the message from the customer asking for a refund. So the agent being tested is generating new answers. And these answers are evaluated against the dataset I saved earlier. And now it passed.
I'm glad to see that it passed. Now, what is the purpose of this test?
Let's say I'm adding a new feature where my agent can place orders for the customer. So as I'm doing that, I want to make sure I don't break the refund workflow.
That makes perfect sense, Annie. I use unit tests that way when I'm writing regular non-AI code as well.
And yeah, that is a good practice. I want to show you one more thing. This golden dataset was saved in a regular JSON file. And here it is. And this file contains a message entered by the user. And the agent's response from the previous run. And we want to compare against this response in the future tests. And adding tools that we want agent to call with parameters.
Very nice. So I could edit that file to modify the test use case?
Yeah, that's right. You could even create new files with the same format to create new test cases. Alright, interactive testing in the ADK web UI is very handy, but eventually you want to transition to the command line.
Why is that?
Well, at the end of the busy day of writing code, you may have a dozen test cases, and you want to run them all. And to do that, I run ADK eval, followed by the test files we generated before, and a config file. So it runs through the tests, just like before, but I don't have to click run in a web browser.
That's neat. I'm glad to see that all the tests still run successfully.
Yeah, I'm glad too. The last type of testing is during automated deployment with CI/CD.
Oh, I love a good CI/CD pipeline. Organizations often have existing pipelines that they want to integrate with, even for these AI applications.
Yeah, that's where pytest comes in. You can add some codes like this to make your test a pytest. And then you can run it as a pytest command in your CI/CD pipeline. And it runs your evaluation datasets you created before. And you can make it stop the deployment pipeline if any of those tests fail.
Very good. But I have some questions for you, Annie.
Go ahead, Martin.
If the agent responds correctly, why do we care about the trajectory or what tools it used to get there?
Yeah, because logic matters. For example, what if the app told the customer that the order has been refunded, but it didn't check the order to see that whether it could be refunded? And if that happens, we want the test to fail so that we can fix the bug.
Makes sense. Now, if I were to ask the customer service agent the same question twice, it might return two different responses. How does the computer grade the response if the wording is different every time?
Yeah, so by default, the testing tool uses the ROAD1 matrix, which measures word overlap between two texts. But you can use an LLM as a judge instead if you prefer, and an LLM can be smarter. For example, your golden dataset may have the phrase, "Yes, I can help." But when you're running your test, the agent might respond with, "Sure, I would be happy to assist." And this response is worded very differently from the golden response. But you may want to approve it anyway. So our LLM would know that they mean the same thing.
Thanks for showing us this, Annie. As you built this, what did you learn?
Yeah, so I learned three things. Firstly, we would test the journey, the trajectory, not just the outcome. And we can use the trajectory score to ensure the agent follows your business logic. For example, it looks up customer before issue the refund. And secondly, we can use test progression. So firstly, we have ADK web earlier in the local development with web UI, and then we have ADK eval for the command line tests. And lastly, pytest can be added to your CI/CD. And the last thing I learned is use ADK to make your life easier with all the tools and metrics that ADK provided for you. And I've also published a collab that you can practice agent evaluation yourself.
Excellent. I will add a link to that code lab in the video description. Thank you for showing us this today, Annie.
Thank you for having me, Martin.
And thank you, everyone, for watching. If you have any questions for Annie or me, ask in the comments below. Also, please let me know what you thought of today's episode. I love hearing from you, and I read every single comment. Now go build some great agentic AI applications. Bye!